Hey, Diana, did you know the best investment I ever made was in an airplane ticket?
Mark, that's the dumbest thing you've ever said.
Ladies and gentlemen, jurists and just curious, welcome to the Successful Barrister podcast. Here you'll learn about marketing, management, and life skills for lawyers that probably won't get you disbarred. Hosted by Marc Whitehead, a seasoned lawyer who remembers when fax machines were cutting edge, and Diana Berry, attorney, COO, and the brains behind the scenes. Together, they are the legal world's most dynamic duo since statutes met regulations. So if you're looking to build a practice, not a prison, you're in the right place. Welcome to the Successful Barrister, where legal legends are made.
And welcome to the Successful Barrister podcast, the podcast for lawyers and law firm leaders about marketing, management, and life skills that probably won't get you disbarred. I am your host, Marc Whitehead, alongside my number one, my co-host, my COO, Diana Berry. Hey, Diana, what's up?
Not much. Welcome back.
Thank you. Now, I've been gone for damn near 2 weeks.
Over 2 weeks, 2 weeks and 2 days. Not that anyone was counting.
Not that anyone was counting. And you were so cheery when I got back. You must, having a vacation for me really lifted your spirits. This was supposed to be a vacation for me, but
I think that, it was both. I think it was nice for both of us. I did have a 2-week break from podcasting, which was, I had so much white space in my calendar.
So damn hard.
It does usually take a lot of prep for me, more prep than you would probably be comfortable with.
I prepped, laid me 5 minutes for this podcast.
I don't, listeners. Just so you know, I put effort and time into your podcast. But today, I didn't have to, because today we are talking about the man, the myth, the legend.
My favorite subject.
Marc Whitehead.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What are we talking about today? What am I supposed to put, since I didn't put any effort into this? So.
Well, we are leading up to 100 still. So thank you guys. If you're still listening, well, actually, since you're still listening to us, thank you for making the journey with us to 100.
Episode 100.
Yes, sir. Episode
Not
100.
age 100.
Have you looked at us?
I'm not that old yet.
Okay. Well, in case we need, clearly Mark felt like you needed to clarify, guys. For those of you just listening.
Episode 100.
And not looking at us. We are not aged, neither of us are aged 100 or anywhere near it. So we are leading up to episode 100. And leading up to episode 100, we are going to take a couple of detours along the way. We've talked about your favorite episode, the one most listened to. We've talked about Mark's favorite episode. And now we're going to talk about Mark and his growth story. I don't know where we'll actually drop these, but we'll probably talk about Mark's origin story and how he built his practice. And the flip side of that is actually also some of Mark's biggest mistakes, which is why I'm really excited about this podcast.
Oh, boy. Okay. So have we decided what episode number this actually is?
Well, it depends if marketing lets me get my way. If so, I think it may be 99.
This may be 99?
Or 98.
I think it's 98 because then next week, I think it's 98.
Well, again, I think we just are going to record out of order, so marketing has to let me.
We have no idea what number we're on.
Again, I do, guys. Let's just so we're clear. I know what's happening here. But really what we wanted to do for you guys as we lead up to episode 100 is some of the biggest mistakes that Mark made in his career and as he was growing a firm that is now, I don't know if this makes it into the I think it's in the commercial, but over 70 people literally across the world, serving clients across the nation, including you've defended clients or in Guam.
We don't defend.
Sorry.
We are plaintiffs.
Represented clients.
We are plaintiffs in these cases.
And you've represented clients in Guam?
So Guam, Puerto Rico, and 44 states.
Does that includes Alaska? You updated.
Oh, yeah. I've actually had several cases in Alaska.
Yeah, but yeah, I just wanted to make sure. So quite a successful firm. And so we're going to talk a lot about the lessons that you learned.
So I think the way you framed this, way you pitched it, that you were so gleeful, is you're learning about all of the things that I've done wrong, as you say, with a little twinkle in your eye. So the common theme here that I think goes back to all the things that I've ever done wrong in my 34 years now. We're pushing 34. I think we're pushing.
I'm not going to add another year where you're not going to.
Okay, it's
if
somewhere.
You say 34, I'll try to remember 34.
Somewhere in there. The commonality of all of these things is my limiting self-belief, my the limit on how big I could think, the limit on what I thought I could do or what I could accomplish was always the root of probably all the mistakes that I ever made. I think what the Hey Diana was, my what did we say? Don't be afraid to get on the damn plane is kind of how we're titling this episode. That was kind of like I can't remember who said that, but I heard it from somebody. They said, don't be afraid to get on a damn plane. And that was kind of the crux of a limiting belief that I used to have, which is like everything is local. Like, no, I got to get on a plane. I got to go out and see people. I got to go meet people. I got to experience the world. I got to experience other law firms. I got to experience other concepts out there. I don't need to limit myself to little old Houston, Texas, that little town of just over 6 million people. It's so tiny. So.
And I think even for law firms that don't have a national practice, some of the things that Marc's going to talk about, because he's going to share 6 lessons that he's learned over the course of his 34-year career.
Be up to 37 by the time this podcast is over.
Just tell me when you add one. So I think that the times that he didn't get what he wanted, for example, when he had to face hard truths about himself, especially about the people that had been with him for years, and when Marc had to face his own core values of loyalty and how that challenged his business practices and his operational, how he then moved operationally. And so I think that those hard decisions made you the success that you are now. And we're going to talk about, how we've, what you've done over those 34 years.
Yeah. So I think, and again, the core theme is going to keep coming back to, I had my own limiting beliefs, and it wasn't until I figured out, get on the damn plane and go experience other people, go experience other concepts, other ideas. That was really the breakthrough that I had, and what I continue to try to do.
And I encourage,
which is why I was so jealous of you that you got to go to Atticus while I was stuck in a villa in Italy while you got to go to Atticus.
How many times is that going to come up today? I mean, and actually, guys, he's actually pretty, Mrs. Whitehead does not listen to this, but he's actually really serious about that. He was really upset. This has already come up a couple of times into today.
The first thing I did when I get back, what happened at Atticus?
Yeah,
what happened at Atticus?
He was demanding his email. So I encourage all of our listeners to please find yourself in Marc's stories, because I think you will find yourself in the things that he shares, and hopefully the lessons will be applicable to you too.
This podcast is sponsored by Marc Whitehead Associates, a national disability benefits law firm. Marc Whitehead runs a firm of over 60 dedicated people whose mission is to make a difference in the lives of our injured and disabled clients. Marc represents disabled claimants in Social Security disability, private disability insurance, and veterans disability claims in all 50 states. Marc Whitehead is double board certified in both Social Security disability law and personal injury trial law. Marc has litigated disability cases in over 40 states and counting, and can help your clients too. Stop throwing your phone calls away. Call Marc Whitehead at 701-VIP-LEAD. That's 701-VIP-LEAD. Or visit our website at disabilitydenials.com. Referral fees are paid in all jurisdictions where it is permitted. Refer us your disability cases today, and know that your clients will be in good hands.
And we're back, listeners. We're going to share 6 of Marc's hardest lessons that he's had to learn over the course of his now, are we still a 34-year career?
I think we might be up to 38, 39.
Which will have allowed him to become the success that he is now. So we're going to start with lesson number 1, Marc.
So I think the first lesson I came up with was that expertise matters. And I think here's the trap I had. Loyalty, I always valued loyalty. But expertise is priceless. And the example I kind of give here is that I never had a true marketing director, somebody that was actually experienced in marketing, had a background in marketing, education in marketing, had worked in industry, knew things, until about 2018, I think.
Really?
So I don't know how long, do the math on that. So that was 25 years. I've been in practice for almost 25 years before I actually hired a true marketing director. And it's not that I didn't have one in title. I did have one in title, But it was just somebody that I had hired as an assistant who was very loyal to me, and I was very loyal to her. And I think I put loyalty over expertise there. And that was a big mistake that I made, is that I think I probably hindered our growth, probably for the entire, I'm going to call it the teens. I kind of hindered our growth during the teens because I didn't have a true marketing director that could kind of run with what we had built. Not that we were doing horrible, but we just weren't running on all cylinders. So I hired, I'll throw out a pitch, Henry Harlow. I hired Henry to build our website back in 2008. Great guy, really good. And he kind of hinted around at that because he was dealing with my marketing director, who wasn't really a marketing director at the time. And of course he didn't want to say anything. He didn't want to get in the middle of it, but he was running our website. He goes, have you considered bringing somebody in-house to run some of these things? Like, well, I've got so-and-so here to run it. And I think he was trying to drop hints right then and there that I really needed to upgrade my game, that we had moved into a different level and I needed to really upgrade. And I just didn't see it because I was loyal.
You had blinders.
I had blinders on. And I really didn't see it, and it wasn't until this person decided to leave her on their own because they got married and moved to another city that the opportunity fortuitously opened up to me that I could upgrade. I could upgrade the position. So that was my fault. I would say that really sort of stunted us, in about that 8 to 10 year period that we really could have taken off a lot further than what we did.
So I think Marc puts me in a lot of rooms, and I talk to a lot of our ADA cousins about this. And I would say that the corollary where Marc's thesis or lesson learned is that expertise matters. I would say that the corollary is to know your core values and where they translate into blind spots. Because I should say, and I'm not going to turn this into a therapy session for Marc and me much, I don't think anyway, but Marc's core value of loyalty continues to be a blind spot for him. But now with the relationship that you and I have developed, you at least know about it.
You don't hesitate to point it out.
No, sir. No, sir. Because I think that that's why you hired me, to be able to speak those hard truths to you. You may not like it, but at the same time, when you do operate, I'm not going to tiptoe it around the way Mr. Henry did and gently suggest to you that your loyalty is hindering you. But I also think that a similar corollary is the generalist versus specialist discussion. Sometimes, especially in growth firms, what we hear about, especially with our ADA cousins, is that they've promoted someone to the team lead position, someone who's helping them operationally, but still managing a caseload, for example, because they've just promoted someone internally. And that's how you end up with the Marges of the world.
Yes.
And the Marges of the world for non-ADA cousins out there.
Well, the Marges of the world are sort of those old, stubborn employees that you keep around because they've been loyal to all these years, but they're really hindering your growth because they've reached their ceiling long ago and they can't grow.
And you're unwilling to.
And you're unwilling to make a change.
So look out for, and sometimes generalists make sense, but at every level of growth, you must specialize. So for example, at some point, you did have someone running your operations, but then you had what you called a three-headed monster when I hired on. I was like, well, who do I go talk to about this? And you were like, it's a three-headed monster. And I'm like, well, we're going to fix that really quickly. And so now you just have.
Now we have Godzilla, right?
But I'm aware I'm Godzilla. So, Marc, do you have any thoughts on which position should always be a specialist?
Which position? Most of them. What do you mean?
And your managerials or your back office, for example. Obviously, you shouldn't have your intake specialist also being a case manager.
No, absolutely not. So intake specialist should be intake specialist and nothing more. I'm assuming you have a fair amount of volume. I remember when we hired our first intake specialist, my people were saying, oh, can they also do filing and do other work around the office as well? I'm like, no. Their job is to be on the phone 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, week after week, month after month, until the end of time. No, you cannot. I told them I'd chop their hand off. The first person who handed a file to one of my intake specialists, I'm chopping your hand off right there.
And I stay true to that too. And I would echo that with the intake, with your intake director. If you decide you need, because Marc's thesis has always been, before you spend too much money on marketing.
Before you spend a dime on marketing.
Yeah, you say dime.
I say a dime. Before you spend a dime on marketing, you better make sure your intake process is locked down tight.
And so if you're going to have that, please make sure you actually specialize in that position. Don't keep that one as a hybrid the way that Marc did, or make sure you level up on that position. What's your second lesson, Marc?
So the second lesson wasn't a mistake necessarily. It was just a lesson, is that sometimes big opportunities often look irrational on their face. Some of the best things that I've ever done, the first time I heard them, sounded crazy to me, absolutely insane. I'm like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. It's the old Atticus line.
Is that how you got our tagline?
Yeah. But, some things sound really dumb to begin with, but then if you work through them and think about it, they actually, and stick to it, sometimes they actually turn out to be really brilliant ideas. So, I've told this story before, but I one time this was in the late 90s, I was flipping through AAJ's trial magazine. AAJ was actually called something different back then. I think it was called Atla. And I was flipping through the magazine, and there was an ad from a marketing agency out of Denver, and they said, we'll fly you and put you up free in Denver if you just come and check out our studios and check out what we have to offer. And I was like, screw it. I'll take a free trip to Denver. They took me to a Rockies game and all this stuff, and I went. So Harlan Schillinger picked me up at the airport, and after we got done talking about his Harley Davidson collection, he started asking me, this came out of the blue. I didn't understand it. He goes, Marc, how much Social Security disability do you do in your firm? And I go, none. And he goes, why? And I go, because I don't know how to do it. And he goes, you really ought to consider it. And by the end of that trip, he came up and convinced me of this wild-ass idea that I should put half of my marketing budget into going after SSD cases. And I, to the life of me to this day, still can't remember how he talked me into it. I mean, it must have been over many, many drinks that he got me moving in this direction. Because, again, why would you put half of your marketing budget into something you don't really know how to do? I had no back office. I had no expertise. I knew nothing. And he did, and he talked me into it. And damn if it didn't work.
So you have no advice for our listeners on when a irrational decision can become rational?
I'm just telling you, keep an open mind when somebody comes and talks to you. So the the second part about this, and I'm probably stepping on my outline a little bit. The second part of this, of doing something that just sounds totally wacky, I credit my friend Jonathan Harris, our friend. You're big buddies with Jonathan as well.
He's great.
You love Jonathan.
He and his wife.
He and his wife are lovely, lovely people. And Jonathan was the one who told me, the world is your oyster. You don't have to just take cases in Houston, Texas. I mean, think about it, Marc. Everything you do is federal. You can handle cases anywhere in the country. And I'm like, and I thought that was the dumbest idea ever until I thought about it. And he's absolutely right, but I have absolutely no idea where to start, and Jonathan just said, well, give me a call. I can tell you exactly how to do it. And he walked me through the steps, and he helped me come up with the ideas, and he set me up on how do you find local counsel in various states. And within probably 3-4 years, I'd probably litigated in half the states in the country in a very, very short amount of time, because he came up with some wild, wacky idea that I thought was stupid until I thought about it.
Yeah, and so I think that the corollary there, for all of our non-disability attorneys or anyone who wants to make an irrational decision, is to find the exciting in what sounds like a crazy idea. Because, Marc, you obviously, with the disability practice, we find ourselves in a lot of PI rooms. And so I automatically have to do a lot of translating into how could this work for us. And what is it, that whole thing, do one thing every day that scares you? The scarier the idea is, or the more ridiculous, the more visceral the reaction to the idea, the more you should look into it as to why this is actually, like, why am I responding this way? And then finding what does work. Because, yeah, of course it's going to sound crazy, but finding what does work, you know what? I bet you could have lost that 50%, half of your budget that year and been okay with it. Maybe. I don't know.
Who knows? I would have been cranky.
So it's a Monday for you.
Monday.
It's an everyday for you. But you actually did step a little bit on your outline there with your Jonathan Harris story. And you talked about your lesson number 3.
Lesson number 3, the answers aren't all in your office. Get out of your office, see the world. I think we tease this in the opening of this podcast. The bigger your world becomes, the smaller your problems seem. I love that quote. For the first half of my career, I didn't go to any AAJ stuff. I didn't go to any Atticus stuff. I didn't go to any PILMA stuff that we've talked about a lot on this podcast. I'd never taken the time to visit other law firms to see how other law firms ran their practices. I'd never been in a mastermind before. I was in the business of collecting business cards, but I wasn't necessarily in the business of collecting ideas. And again, I'm not exactly sure what happened. Oh, I know what it was. Mark Powers, who is the owner of Atticus, actually came and spoke at a State Bar of Texas event. That was here in Houston, because I wouldn't leave Houston. It was here in Houston, and he spoke. And he just said some really brilliant, quite nowadays would seem very simplistic, but back then it was very brilliant, mind-altering stuff about process and procedure and how you should, view your law practice as a pipeline, and you're feeding things into one end of the pipe and you're putting output out on the other end of the pipe. And he talked about choke points, and he talked about, who, not how, and he talked about all of these things, and he talked about, reducing your stress and reducing your tolerations and all of this stuff that I'd never heard before. And I talked to him like, where are y'all out of? Florida. Okay. Where do y'all meet? Florida. I'm like, so if I want to be a part of your group, I got to get on a plane and go to Florida, right? Yep. Turns out they started a group in Dallas, so I actually only had to go to Dallas. But that was still a plane.
And now we still go to Florida.
Now we go to Florida.
But at least we get to leave the airport.
Yes, now we get to leave the airport. So, that's where I stepped on my outline with Jonathan, because Jonathan was about the same time. It was about the same time that, he kind of said the same thing. And I'm like, this is brilliant. Because most of the stuff that we go, rarely does anything come to Houston, Texas.
Even Fireproof was in Austin.
Fireproof was in Austin. We had to drive to that, but rarely is stuff that matters to us in our world. Now, if you're in a PI practice, yes, there's more local stuff that is relevant to what you do. But in our world, in disability world, nothing much comes to Houston. You got to go find it. So I think that was basically the lesson is the answers aren't in your office.
And I think that one of the best things that Marc ever did for us was the law firm visit to Pond-La-Hockey. Considering that our SSD practice was not nearly as thriving as it was back then, you sent me and 2 of your attorneys to Pennsylvania for like 36 hours, and we got stuck there. So it was a lot more than 36, but they were so generous with their time.
Yes.
And the way that they do things. I still refer to those notes. So shout out to Pond-La-Hockey for being so incredibly generous about sharing their best practices and the way they do things. Obviously we don't even compete at their level, but I think that even if you're, for example, an estate planning law firm, and you're like, well, how does this apply to me, Marc? Because I don't have a national practice at all. Find someone that you would like to become one day, and see if they'll allow you to come look at their operations, or at least just sit, maybe buy them coffee, buy them lunch or something, so that they can just share some of the things that they do. Marc and I were only in the PILMA mastermind for a year. Marc only made 2 of the meetings. I got to go to Asheville, so I made 3. Not that I'm counting or trying to bring up his FOMO.
I was really pissed about that.
Still
Damn hurricane.
Apparently. So
United, you can't fly in a hurricane. What the hell?
I still got there. But, that PILMA Mastermind, I still refer to notes from there. I still, for example, have to give our marketing director something from that particular from that group 2 years ago, because it's a great thing for as he sets up his team. And so, we still talk to those people. So you never know what rooms you'll get in that will lead to transitional things for your law firm. Just got to be open to them.
Just got to be open to it. Law of large numbers. Expose yourself constantly. So the next thing I wrote, and this was a mistake that I frequently made early in my career, but I wrote, listen to people who see things you don't, which is another way of saying take off the blinders. The specific thing, specifically, number one, understand that you don't have to be the smartest person in the room. I say this constantly because I surround myself with people that are smarter than me. And that, I think, is the secret to most people's success. That's what Henry Ford said. The secret to success is being the dumbest person in the room. But you have to be able to recognize that. You have to be able to recognize talent when you see it. I have recognized talent in you. You can run operations. I recognize talent in Austin over here, who clearly knows more about marketing than I do. I recognize Brittany, who runs our insurance department. She knows more about insurance law than I ever, would hope to know. But I surround myself with really smart people. But I also step outside the office and I surround myself with other smart people. I would say specifically, though, what I thought about here when I said listen to people who see things you don't, it doesn't have to be, at that level. So, for example, Melanie, my paralegal, who's been with me for 30 years, every case I've tried 50-some jury trials. Melanie was with me for every single trial, sitting there next to me. And she was better at picking juries than I could ever be. She would just listen to all the questions and she would just start picking them out. Like, don't get that one. That person's on your side. She was so great at that. And I respected that. But where I failed, she also would do the same thing with clients. That client's terrible. You need to get rid of this case. Do not litigate this case. She would tell me that over and over again early in our career. And I'm like, no. I can make this case. I can make this case work. I can deal with the client, no problem. And every time I did that, every time I took a case that she told me not to case, I grew to regret it. And I remember the last one was such a horrible client. And she constantly wanted to borrow money. She was rude. She was condescending. And once that case was over, Melanie and I sat down. I don't know if we had a bourbon together or something, but she sat down and looked me square in the eyeball and she goes, if you ever take that case again, I promise you, I will quit. And I swore to her right then and there that I would listen to her from there on. So listen to other people. Other people have, especially other people's intuition. A lot of people, that's probably been one of the things I'm not very good at is I'm not very good at reading people. It's never been my superpower. I like everybody. I think everybody's great. I trust everybody. This is just my natural tendency. And Melanie has always been a great check on that. She's always been, you need to think about this. You need to be there's some red flags going off here. And, I've now learned after all of these years to listen to her. So she's, and that's her superpower. She's good at reading people.
And I think that that's really what you mean when you say smarter, Marc, that when you surround yourself with people who are smarter than you, it's not necessarily intellectually smarter, though, obviously you mentioned that Brittany's substantively smarter with you on insurance or ERISA matters, but that you surround yourself with people whose strengths complement your weaknesses. And so, we talk a lot about, like, for example, Gallup's Strengths Finder book, and I think that that's an easy one to find out what your top five strengths are and what your top 5 weaknesses are, and to make sure that you're very aware. I think that the whole thesis of that book is to at least you have to be aware of your 5 weaknesses, not necessarily so that you can work on them, but so that they won't be blind spots for you. And, I think that Marc, as everyone here who's in a growth-oriented firm, as you scale up, that the important thing is that you do listen to the people that you have placed as your boots on the ground. One of the things that drives me crazy that you say is, "I don't know this for sure, but I just feel it in my gut." You know how you do that? Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm like, "Okay, well, let me tell you, I know exactly what's happening here. I can give you the bar charts, the report and Litify, and all the data from QBO to back up what I know for sure is happening." So I
So the
think
feeling in my gut, it just has something to do with what I ate for lunch. Is what you're trying to say.
yeah, maybe, yes, sir. But I do think that there is that trust that we have had to earn to be able to get to that point because as you continue to grow and scale up, the people that you've put in those places to be your boots on the ground should also be reliable. So what's number 5, Marc?
I would say don't confuse hard work with leadership. And I've made this mistake many, many times in my past. And I guess the concept here is heroes don't scale. The hero that works their ass off, or at least tells you constantly that they're working their ass off, that may be great, but it doesn't scale. They can actually become a choke point. And I can think of several.
Bottleneck.
They become the bottleneck because they're the hero, because everything has to come through them. I remember specifically, I had an attorney. This has to be Anthony just joined as a clerk. So this was over 15 years ago that I had an attorney that had the hero complex, that I'm going to work 80 hours a week and I'm going to handle all of these things and everything is going to come through me. And again, that was one that Melanie warned me about. She started throwing up the red flags like, "Marc, you need to look at this. You need to think about this, blah, blah." And she was absolutely right. And I confused her work ethic with her leadership ability, which was none. I mean, she basically alienated half the people in the firm. But I confused her hard work with her ability to be a leader in the firm. And basically she did. She became a choke point within the firm. We couldn't outgrow her ability. Regardless how hard she worked, we could never outgrow that section. Could never outgrow her ability because she just couldn't let it go. So, I had the same problem in the VA department for a while. The person who ran that for a while, very hard worker, very hard, but very much a choke point. And I had come to the conclusion that the VA department was always just going to be a loss leader. It sounds good to represent veterans, but we're never going to really make a profit doing this. And it wasn't until Selena took over that department and really built out a team and made it a team effort down there, and not everything, revolved around the hero, that department actually started becoming profitable and actually making money for us.
Yeah, but I think that one of the corollaries there is the right leadership it can make all the difference in the world. So, for example, that also happens with vendors. So, I've switched account reps with vendors and had a completely different experience with the vendor. So, which is it salvaged the relationship. But I think that also the corollary there is just because. With your first story, Marc, and not necessarily with your second one, but just because it's making money doesn't mean that your system isn't broken. Because it's you and I had a pretty tense discussion. We did not have nearly the credits in the bank to have the discussion we were having, but with one of your departments in my time here, and because it was making so much money, you did not want to hear my suggestions for change until it hit you in the face. So, and then now we're still kind of working on having that one get back up to
blah 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 blah.
I said profitability.
Yeah, I'm still butthurt over that
because I was right. No, what's your 6th lesson, Marc?
So my 6th lesson is sometimes losing is the best thing that can happen. A setback can become a reset. And that's exactly what happened to me. I didn't realize it at the time. So the story goes back. So back in 2001, I got a wild hair and I ran for Houston City Council. Now, City Council in Houston is just a part-time gig, I think they do get a salary, but it's a very low salary. But it's sort of a part-time. And I actually did, in a field of 8 people, I actually did really well, and I impressed some people. And I finished in what I would call a strong 3rd in the race. So the very next year, so from 2020, from 01, so then in 02, then I got recruited to run for Harris County attorney, which is a much bigger position, a countywide position, a full-time, fully paid position, which would have required me to either sell or shut down my law practice. And I was dumb enough to think that I could win. So I will say I lost 52-48. I was the highest.
So not so dumb.
I was the highest vote getter of all the local Democratic candidates in Harris County. So back then, Harris County was totally Republican. Every elected official was Republican. And we thought that we were going to break through that year, and that we were going to be the year that the Democrats finally started winning some seats locally. Again, 52-48, kind of came close. But I was in shutdown mode with the law firm. I canceled all of my Yellow Page contracts, and everybody that knows anything about Yellow Pages knows that they're cycles of doom, because there's 15 Yellow Pages throughout the county.
Mark, does anyone know anything about Yellow Pages anymore?
I'm just telling you, they know contracts.
Oh,
they know revolving contracts. So all their contracts kept revolving, and everything kept. So basically, to get yourself out of that revolving set of contract, it was like an 18-month wean-out period. And I never would have been able to do that very efficiently, except for the fact that I thought I was going to win the race, and I was shutting the practice down. So I lost. And I will say it was a gut punch, and I was kind of down in the dumps for about 6-8 months. I was actually considering taking a job with another law firm that I'd made a lot of contacts running. But what I realized after the fact, and somebody told me this, they said, the best thing that can ever happen to you from a business perspective is to run for political office and finish a strong second. Because that's what I did. And first of all, I had a total reset. I was able to reset my practice. I'd gotten out of these bad Yellow Page contracts right at the right time, right when Yellow Pages was dying. Caused me to start developing a website. I had all of these new contacts. I had all of these people I knew, all these political connections. I became, I quickly became the disability guy in Harris County, Texas. I mean, I just got known as that guy. And the whole thing is that loss allowed me to totally reset my practice and totally refocus. And, after that 6-month, feeling sorry for myself period, I was able to my mind just kind of exploded, and I just at the same time that I met Mark Powers, right at the same time.
So you had like a trifecta.
I had that everything happened, everything clicked in like 2003, 2004. It just all started clicking because I just happened, the confluence of events. Everything just started happening, in the right sequence at the right time, and I started to open up my mind, and so everything just started clicking about that time. But it all happened because I lost an election. So.
Well, and I think what you really did was you shifted your mindset. So going back to our opener about how, your limiting beliefs were really the common theme in all of these 6 lessons. Mark, I'm not going to rub it in, but again, I got to go to Atticus earlier, and we had a Atticus talk to us about how he was happy, and I'm using the words, I'm quoting, he was happy that 2 of his employees embezzled $1 million from him.
That's a sick puppy right there.
I was just going to say, let that sink in. That now, I think it's been 15 months or so. I don't know.
Been over a year.
It's been, so it's been close to 15 months since he discovered the fraud, and it's an active investigation and everything, but literally close to $1 million embezzled from him. And he can now say he is happy it happened. And so I think that the corollary,
he learned a lot of lessons.
He
learned a lot of lessons through that.
And the corollary there is when these horrible things happen to you, as they will. Mike Morse made a whole book and
about his building burning down,
and how now what a book, a coaching, a thriving, lucrative business.
All because his building burned down.
So if you can switch your mindset to something when these things happen to you, as they will as you grow your practice, it can be one of the best things that can happen to you.
Mm-hmm. All right, we're not going to burn this building down. So
please don't.
I don't want to
know that we're
not. That's not a lesson.
I'm going to call in that day, guys.
No embezzlement, no fraud. No, let's don't do that.
All right, Mark, when we come back, your top 5 takeaways?
Absolutely. This is Marc Whitehead, lawyer, entrepreneur, and business coach. Thanks for listening to the Successful Barrister podcast. If we've stirred your juices, hit me up with an email at marc@marcwhitehead.com. Remember, Marc is spelled with a C. And get on the Successful Barrister newsletter mailing list. Even better, let's set up a call. I'd love to talk to you about working together, talk shop, or just shooting the breeze. All right. So Diana, because this is apparently all about me, you're not going to do any of the 5 takeaways that we normally share.
I think it makes more sense. I mean, these are your takeaways from your story. So why would
Fine.
I've shared my corollaries.
You know, I've noticed that it's funny during this podcast. You puff me up a lot. You talk about my success and
oh, Marc, well, you did.
And then when we're one-on-one, boy, you will let it rip.
Well, you did say I missed you, so I'm just trying to stay consistent. But yeah, let's talk when we're off.
Yeah, when we're not on the mic.
I had a list of things for him to fix.
Yes, like what the hell were you thinking?
All right, what's your first takeaway, Marc?
Hire expertise earlier. It kind of goes to the who, not how theme that I like to go back to. You know, I think a lot of times people get stuck on, I don't know how to do this. I was talking to some of my attorneys a month ago, like they were running up against, like, I don't know how to do this. I'm like, okay, well, and they're like, what do I do? And I'm like, no, that's not the question. The question is, who do you need to talk to? Who do you need to talk to figure this out? You know, it could be Claude. You could talk to Claude. I'm just saying. Yeah. But who do you talk to figure it out? So one of the things, I know this is kind of to me, an obvious lesson, but one of the things I keep preaching to my lawyers is, you know, you don't have to wait to file a lawsuit before you hire an expert on the case. You can hire the expert prior to filing a lawsuit. That expert might tell you shouldn't file this lawsuit. You should drop this case right now. You know, that's still money well spent. But the who, not how. Find people with expertise early in the process. One of the stories I sort of touched on, but I didn't talk in great detail about, was one of the reasons that we have such a great internet presence relative to a lot of firms that do what we do, is that we started so early. And it wasn't because I knew what the hell I was doing. I got introduced to Henry Harlow. And Henry Harlow, back in the 90s and the early 2000s, was one of those sort of pioneering people in the interweb thingy space. You know, he goes, Marc, you need a website, but you don't need to buy this crap from FindLaw and those idiots. You need to put together a site that you own, that you understand, that you own all the elements to, that you control every bit of, that you have the passwords, that you can lock out any vendor. And you need to do it your way, and I'll help you. And that's one of his key pieces of advice, is you should own the passwords to everything that you own, all your intellectual properties, so you can lock out any vendor at any point. In other words, you can fire the vendor at any point. Never let them have control over what you've got. But anyway, that was a big advantage because I sought some expertise. That I literally bought a book back in the late 90s, early 2000s on how to code websites, an HTML guidebook. It was like 3 inches thick. And I was flipping through it, and I was like, I'm going to learn how to do this. I'm going to make my own website. Oh. Yeah, it took me about an hour to realize that's the dumbest thing. That's the dumbest idea I ever had. We're going to find somebody. We're going to find somebody to do it. So my first one is hire experts earlier in your thought process. Number 2, as I think I kind of beat this to death earlier, was get out of your own bubble. Get on the damn plane. Get out in the world, visit the world, see what is out there, see what there is to offer. You know, I learned so much from going to MTMP in Vegas, or going to AAJ. I was in San Diego this year. I was in Nashville last summer. You got to get out. You got to find the things. The resources that you need aren't automatically going to come to you. You got to get out and find them. Okay. Number 3, take some calculated risks. I took several calculated risks. Some of them failed. We started a bankruptcy section to do bankruptcy work in the late 90s. It didn't work. It failed. A lot of it failed because the laws changed, and I decided that it just became an area that I want to be in. But it wasn't fatal. I used to do a lot of criminal defense work, mainly because I liked it. It was kind of fun. Anytime, being in the courtroom every day, dealing with things, criminal defense is fun for a while. It's fun till it's not. Funny, I ran into one of my old criminal defense lawyers last night at the movie theater.
Oh, wow.
Some of my buddies. We tried a case together. And she hadn't practiced law in years. We happened to see her at the movie theater last night, and we were talking about that case that we had like 30 years ago. Wow. Still remember it. So, but take some calculated risks. Not everything's going to work out, but eventually you keep trying, you keep plugging, and eventually you'll hit on something that really works. That's what happened with us. Number 4, listen to people smarter than you. Always look, you are the average of the 5 people you hang around most. So hang around some really smart people, and don't think that they have to be above you in the command structure. Like I mentioned, Melanie, who's my paralegal. So in the structure, she's lower than me on the totem pole, but for a lot of things, she's smarter than I am. So listen to the people that, identify the people that are smarter than you, that know more than you, and learn from them. I would say number 5, and this is the theme of the whole podcast, is do not allow yourself to become a limiting factor. Keep your mind open to all possibilities. Don't become the choke point, both in terms of just general production. Don't become the choke point in terms of, intellectual awareness, intellectual curiosity. Be open to all ideas, no matter how wild and crazy they may seem at first, because you never know. The person who thought up Google probably sounded like an insane person the first time they ever mentioned it. Okay? Go back 30 years and buy some of that stock, see where you're at right now. So, never be a limiting factor, especially in your thought processes. So, there was my 5.
Any closing thoughts, parting thoughts, Mark?
Well, I wanted to know what your parting thoughts were.
I think this is a very introspective, and it's crazy because, if I were listening for the first time, and I guess I was, but, you got really lucky, but I also think you make your own luck, that's a thing. So, how you were talking about how your 3 things happened all at the same time. I really think that you did something. There's something there that we didn't talk about, because I don't think that luck just accidentally happens.
So luck happens to everybody, both good and bad luck. And I think successful people are successful because they know how to take advantage of good luck when it presents it.
Able to maximize that opportunity.
Yes.
At the time.
So there's definitely luck involved. I mean, I think about how I met my wife. It was the luckiest thing ever. I mean, there's 1,000 reasons that I never should have met my wife, but just somehow I did. But I managed to take advantage of that, which is probably the best thing I ever did. So
yeah, you definitely
outkicked my coverage.
That one.
Yeah, that one.
Sure.
That one.
I mean, yeah, absolutely. So I think that would be my parting thought. So that when luck finds you, be prepared to take advantage of it.
Exactly. All right, with that, we got to get out of here. Thanks for listening to the Successful Barrister Podcast, episode 96, 97, 98, 99. We're not really sure, but it's somewhere up there.
Well, it's definitely 90.
It's in the 90s. We know this much. Anyway, thanks for listening to the Successful Barrister Podcast, where legal legends are made. I'm Mark.
And I'm Diana.
And together we're the dynamic duo of law. So if you've enjoyed this episode, be sure to rate and review us wherever you get that podcast. And make sure you hit that forward button to your friends who may need a little jolt of something. Make sure to visit us at successfulbarrister.com for more resources. Resources.
There you go.
Or hit me up with an email at marc@marcwhitehead.com, Marc spelled with a C, or Diana with 3 N's.
Or just one.
You
can just try one.
All right, Diana at marcwhitehead.com. And don't forget our sponsor, Marc Whitehead Associates, a national disability law firm, at www.disabilitydenials.com. So with that, built to practice, not a prison.
Bye.
Bye.